Good morning. My name is Colleen Brennan. I'm the Vice President Communications and Customer Engagement for TransLink. Welcome everyone here today to our annual general meeting, and it's my pleasure to be here as your MC. Before we start, I'd like you to please switch off your mobile devices if you haven't done so already, or switch them to silent. And I'd also like to point out that in the event of an emergency, the unlikely event of an emergency, please note the nearest exits, which are right behind you. And also, if you have to use the washroom anytime, it's just right behind to my right. I'd also like to take a moment right now to recognize some of our elected officials who we have the honor of having joined us here today. Of course, you're all honored guests, but there are a few people that I'd like to specially recognize. If you could please hold your applause until we've recognized them. I understand that MLA George Heyman is here, and George, are you here? Yes, he is. Okay, thank you very much, George. And Vicki Huntington was supposed to come as well, but I don't see her. I'd also like to recognize our mayors who've joined us today. Her Worship Mayor Linda Hepner is here, I believe I saw. Yes, Mayor Hepner. And Mayor Gregor Robertson as well. Mayor Robertson. And Mayor Wayne Baldwin from White Rock. Are you here? Okay, he was going to join us as well. And also from the City of New Westminster, we have Laurie Williams, Councillor from New Westminster. This is our host city here today. And also from the City of Vancouver, Adrienne Carr, a Councillor. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the elected officials who've joined us today, and I'd ask you to please give them a round of applause. We're also very pleased today that we have our unions are very well represented here as well, the heads of our unions involved with transit. I see Nathan Woods here as the head of Unifor. Nathan, thank you for coming today. And is Carlos Moreira here as well? Carlos is going to be joining us as well. And Joel Elworthy. Joel, are you here? No? Okay. And Ian Reeve as well from COPE was going to be joining us. Oh, great. Thank you, Ian. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause to our union members. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting today coincides with the 125th anniversary of transit in our region, and we're very excited about that, and we're very pleased to be celebrating that here today. It is a wonderful milestone, and tomorrow actually marks the very first, tomorrow marks the 125th anniversary of transit in our region. And you may see outside here parked one of our vintage buses, and it's from 1957 actually, and I hope you've had a chance to go and step on, and if you haven't, I encourage you to do so. We also have a number of people here today from the TRAMS, the Museum Society, Transit Museum Society. Where are you sitting? Because I want to recognize you. They're in uniform, actually. Thank you so much for coming. And one of the things I want to mention, Angus McIntyre was a bus driver in Vancouver for almost 41 years. He worked for 4 different companies because there were a number of iterations over the years. When he did retire, he was with Coast Mountain Bus Company. And we're really pleased to have you here today. And he's actually wearing a uniform from way back in the day, so please give him a big round of applause. Just to show how things have really changed, parked on the other side of the spectrum here, we've got on 8th Street is one of our compressed natural gas vehicles, one of our CNG vehicles, and it's a really kind of a neat, when you look at how far things have come, have a look at that as well, and you can see what we're doing to help the environment and have more efficient buses on our roads today. We're here in New Westminster, our host city, and there's really no better place to celebrate our 125th anniversary for transit. It is the oldest city in Western Canada, and throughout history, New West has really been a hub for linking communities through transit. I also want to recognize Jane Dyson, who's here today. Those of you who know Jane know she's a very strong advocate for disabilities in the province, people with disabilities, and she's really been a tremendous help to us with respect to the work on access transit that we've done, and we really couldn't have done it without her. But she's also been honored this year with the Order of BC, and a great honor for Jane, and she is with us here today. Jane, would you mind rising so we can recognize you? Congratulations. Thank you so much for all you do. I'd also now like to just start by mentioning the rundown of events today. So what we're going to do is we have our board chair, Vice Chair Barry Forbes here with us today. We're going to start with Barry. Kathy McClay, our Chief Financial Officer and Executive Vice President, is going to speak to us as well about their financial results, and our interim CEO, Doug Allen, will also speak to us in a few moments here. So we're going to have lots of time for questions at the end, so we encourage you to ask your questions, as we know you will. For any members of the media who are here, we've got media availability at around 11:30, so we please ask you to hold your questions for that time so the members of the public have an opportunity to ask the questions that they would like to ask today. So with that, I'm going to introduce Barry Forbes. He's our vice chair, and he has been on our board for around 4 years, has been vice chair since the beginning of this year, and I'm going to turn it over to Barry now. Barry.
Well, good morning, and welcome, everyone. Before I begin my formal remarks today, I'd like to introduce my colleagues on the board of directors. Mayor Gregor Robertson, please stand, and I'm going to ask them to stand and wait, and please hold their applause until they've all stood for you. Mayor Linda Hepner, Robin Chakrabarty, John Dawson, Brenda Eaton, and Don Rose. Ladies and gentlemen, your board of directors. Honored guests, and believe me, all of you are honored guests. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to be here with us today. I thought I would take a few moments to talk to you about the role of the board. And I want to start by saying that each of us on the board of directors cares deeply about this region and about the health of our system and what happens here. We hold the best interests of the region and its citizens close to our hearts because we care about making this a better place to live. It's why we serve on the board. It's what motivates us to do the best we can. For every question, every challenge, and every opportunity that comes before the board, we ask ourselves, what is the right thing to do? What is in the best interest of the organization so that it can better serve the region and its citizens? Is this a good decision for taxpayers? Is it right for our customers? And how will the people who serve our customers be affected? You see, the board is in service to the people and citizens of our region. As we reflect on this past year, one of the most important questions we ask ourselves is, how are we making this a better place to live for the people who call home, this home? And it's really a great segue to my next point, which is that the transit system and transit belongs to you. It's built with your tax dollars and your transit fares. It's your Handy Dart. It's your SkyTrain. It's your C-Bus. It's your buses. And it's your roads, your bridges, and pathways. Without you, none of this is possible. And what we do is we leverage the revenue we generate through taxes, transit fares, and other sources, and we make those dollars stretch even further through partnerships and funding agreements. Because joining forces with others and combining resources is a powerful way to make your world-class, and I want to say that again, your world-class transportation system even better. So what does that look like on a practical basis? Well, TransLink has funding agreements and partnerships with municipalities, with the Government of Canada, and the province of British Columbia that have brought great benefits to our region in 2014. TransLink board members have been honored to join mayors, MLAs, and members of Parliament to mark the official start or completion of several key projects in 2014. We brought in a new C-Bus, the Burrard Otter 2, went into service in December, and now plies the waters between North Shore and downtown Vancouver. This important addition to our fleet is gentle on the environment, exceeds marine standards, and delights regular commuters and tourists alike. A funding agreement between ourselves and the federal government made that possible. Meanwhile, in another part of our region, TransLink led an unprecedented collaboration of 12 partners from all levels of government and the private sector. We call it the Roberts Bank Rail Corridor Program. As an organizing partner, and with a $50 million contribution, we helped create major safety and efficiency improvements to the road and rail system along the 70-kilometer stretch that connects Canada's largest container port in Delta with the North American Railroad network. The project is one of the ways that TransLink delivered on the Goods Move It strategy that's part of our mandate. So I want to provide a perspective on the board's commitment to making sure that your transit and transportation system is safe and reliable. Following 2 major service disruptions in SkyTrain last summer, the board approved 20 recommendations from the independent review of SkyTrain service. These will make SkyTrain system more reliable, more resilient, and safer for our customers. The board wants to make sure that people remain safe and are properly cared for in the event of a major service disruption. And that's why we insist on robust emergency response plans that consider all aspects of our transit system: buses, C-Bus, SkyTrain. The recent service disruption that happened earlier this month showed that improvements have been made since last summer. We were able to get to passengers quicker and provide better communications during the incident. There's still more work to be done, though, and I believe Doug will probably have some comments about that when he gives his remarks a little bit later. But I was very pleased to see that additional staff are being hired to ensure that customers will be taken care of when service is disrupted. That's not only a good decision, it's the right decision. In 2014, we also directed management to accelerate the Patello Bridge repair work by 1 year from the original plan. This work must be done if a new bridge, even if a new bridge is eventually built. And moving forward with the repair work now is the right thing to do. We want that bridge to remain safe for you, for drivers, for cyclists, and pedestrians. And we will make sure that TransLink helps those who use the bridge to find alternate ways of getting across the river when construction begins next year. I now want to turn to the matter of the plebiscite. As all of you know, one of the most remarkable events of 2014 was the mayor's creation of a landmark transit and transportation plan to handle the expected growth of over 1 million people to our region. I'm sure that all of us are looking forward to learning the outcome of this historic vote. No matter how the vote turns out, we will keep TransLink focused on its core mandate of safe, reliable, and efficient service for our customers. I want to extend our thanks to the people of this region for participating in this exercise in democracy and engaging in the largest ever public discussion on transportation this region has ever seen. And irrespective of the outcome, the conversation has really just begun. We need to continue. We say that the voters were asked to make a 2-part decision. 1, does the 10-year plan make sense? And 2, is a 0.5% sales tax warranted? Convincing people to vote for a tax increase, well, that's a tough sell even when it will pay for much needed transportation and transit improvements. But we remain hopeful that the majority voted in favor of better transit for our region, because better transit is the answer to congestion. The mayors clearly articulated a compelling vision for the kind of region we aspire. Thanks to their time, energy, and expertise, many of the people who live in our region believe, and now believe, in a better transportation and transit future. And we're certainly engaged enough to vote. Thank you to the mayors for their active support and hard work. The board looks forward to continuing to work with the mayors. And it's remarkable that so many people came from different walks of life to support the mayor's plan. The united regional vision made it possible for a unique coalition of diverse groups from labor, business, students, and the environment to come together in support of the plan and its funding. The board extends its thanks to the Coalition for Better Transit and Transportation for supporting better transit and transportation in our region. You gave generously of your time, energy, and expertise, and we are fortunate that you made your strong voices heard in advocating for better transit and transportation. Bahari Jokar is here with us today, who is a member of that coalition. We want to thank you. We want to thank you for your efforts in engaging in the debate and helping to educate and raise awareness about the issues among the public. And I'd like to invite you to come forward and say a few words. Bahari?
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. The Better Transit and Transportation Coalition would like to thank its members who recognize the intergenerational importance of strong and sustainable transportation planning. Together, we created British Columbia's largest and most diverse coalition of partners with over 140 members across the region. And we know that this is only the beginning of the conversation about the growth of this region as a whole. Investing in transit and transportation is the single biggest step we can take in creating jobs and building our region's economy, maintaining our high quality of life, and protecting our environment for future generations. We're confident that the people of Metro Vancouver are paying attention to transit and transportation issues, and will continue to engage well beyond this plebiscite. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahari, not just for participating, but for your leadership and tireless efforts during the campaign period. The broad coalition of groups who supported the plebiscite also includes many of the unions who represent the men and women who deliver transit services day in and day out. So we also want to extend our thanks to the unions for showing great leadership during the campaign. I now want to say a few words about transparency and openness, and to make an announcement about a decision that the Board of Directors made yesterday. Let me start by saying that at TransLink, we strongly believe that we deliver good value for the money entrusted to us. But what really matters is that you believe it. We are committed to improving transparency for our customers and our stakeholders, and we expect you to hold us to account. We welcome public scrutiny, and that is why we're making more information available than ever before. The public has easy access to vast amounts of information from TransLink, including our business plans and budgets, salary and compensation information, reports about our operational performance, customer satisfaction, our audited financial statements and other financial reports. And we consult with thousands of members of the public every year. Last year, we responded to 430 Freedom of Information requests and participated in numerous, hundreds probably, media interviews. But we can do better. And that's why I'm pleased to announce that TransLink's quarterly board meetings will be open to the public, starting with our next meeting, which is coming up in the fall. I want to conclude by expressing the board's deepest gratitude to TransLink's employees, customers, and our partners and stakeholders. John F. Kennedy once said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter the words, but to live by it." The board's actions are guided by the appreciation of the fact that your public transportation system is primarily built with your tax dollars and your transit fares. The buses, the trains, the bridges, and roads that we operate and maintain belong to you. It really is your transportation system, and we are in your service. You keep us moving. Thank you. Now, many of you will have come here today on transit, so most of you are familiar with the people who work on our front line of our transit services, our SkyTrain attendants, transit police officers, and transit operators. But an organization as large and complex as TransLink employs professionals from many disciplines. Many of them are behind the scenes, so you don't see them. But there are more than 6,700 people who work at TransLink to provide services that are essential to keep things moving. 3 of them are here today to give you a glimpse of what it's like to work at TransLink and introduce you to the contributions that they and their colleagues make every day. Our first presenter works in TransLink engineering. She calls herself a plangineer. I guess that's because she helps plan the infrastructure that allows us all to do our jobs. Please welcome to the podium, Sabrina Lau-Texier. Sabrina.
Thank you, Barry. My name is Sabrina Lau-Texier. I am an urban planner working in the engineering group at TransLink. I design and build passenger facilities like transit stations and bus exchanges, which contribute to our communities and protect the environment. I grew up in Vancouver, and I regularly took the 10 or the 16 downtown, the 4 to the beach, and eventually the 4143 to UBC, where I studied environmental science. I wanted to create a cleaner, greener world and initially did research on alternative vehicle fuels like bioethanol. But over time, I came to believe that the creation of transit-oriented communities would reduce the number of vehicles on the road and have an immediate and substantial impact on lessening energy consumption. So I studied transportation planning in graduate school at the University of Toronto, and I did an internship at TransLink as part of my graduating requirements. That internship caught the eye of a top transportation planning firm in New York City, run by Sam Schwartz, the former transportation commissioner who coined the term gridlock during a 1980 transit strike there. I worked in New York for 5 years and witnessed the transformation of the streets from auto-dominated through routes to celebrations of public spaces. Most people here in BC don't know it, but TransLink and the Metro Vancouver region have a reputation right across North America for excellence in planning and an impressive, fast, clean, and safe transit network. My planning colleagues came from top schools such as MIT, Harvard, and Stanford, and were told, TransLink on your resume will open doors for you throughout your public transit career. When I moved my family back to Vancouver 3 years ago, TransLink was my first choice of employers. I choose to work in transit because I believe in what this organization is trying to do, both at work and outside the office. I haven't owned a car since 2003. I ride my bike to the SkyTrain, and I lock it up in TransLink's new $1 a day, 80-spot bike parkade at Main Street Station. Since I don't have to focus on the road, I use the time to read online news and catch up on my emails. I'm thankful that I have commuting choices, and I want to help bring these choices to even more residents across this region. Thank you. My colleague, Matt Doyle, works for the British Columbia Rapid Transit Company, and he's focused on keeping our rapid transit trains on track. Please welcome Matt.
Thank you, Sabrina, and hello, everyone. My name is Matt Doyle, and I'm a mechanical engineer with BC Rapid Transit Company. I am part of the team responsible for the operations and maintenance of the Expo and Millennium SkyTrain lines. My entry into working with public transit wasn't quite as planned as Sabrina's. I was hired as an engineer in training and expected to gain some experience and move on to more meaningful activities. However, after seeing the passion my coworkers had for the business, my outlook quickly changed. I truly believe the product we deliver on a daily basis makes the Lower Mainland a better place to live. In my current position, I'm lucky to head up a talented team which works together to keep our rapid transit operations moving safely and efficiently over more than 100 kilometers of track. If you've ever been a passenger on SkyTrain, you've ridden on some of our best work. Knowing that the work I do each day has a direct impact on the lives of friends, family, neighbors, and the public is what makes my job so satisfying. My work in engineering is what you might consider to be behind the scenes. If I do my job correctly, no one riding the system knows I'm even here. However, there are times when incidents occur that do lead to delays. I've had more than a few 2 a.m. wake-up calls in my tenure, and even more 6 a.m. Denny's breakfasts after a successful night's work. One of my more recent maintenance projects, more typical of my day-to-day work, is replacing sections of rail on our system. Parts of the original Expo line are 30 years old, and the original tracks have been slowly wearing with the traffic we run over them. Each section of track between New West and downtown sees over 700,000 cars travel over it annually. This is equivalent to over 1,300 fully loaded freight trains. Needless to say, it requires significant effort to maintain the track. This replacement project allows us to replace sections of rail piece by piece over time as they wear out. Once the rails are replaced, it is important to keep them properly maintained. This is essential to keep providing safe service for our customers. I also oversee a maintenance program where we use specialty machines to profile the rail head, removing surface defects in the rail that can otherwise grow and significantly impact the interval between rail replacement activities. This also makes for a smoother ride and reduces the noise caused by passing trains. Similar maintenance activities happen on the trains themselves, ensuring that everything runs smoothly. Each day has its unique challenges and rewards. I enjoy going to work because I provide a necessary public service. I know it makes a difference to thousands of people every day. Thanks very much. It is now my pleasure to introduce TransLink's Chief Financial Officer, Kathy McClay.
Well, thanks, Matt, and thank you to you and your team for what you do each and every day. It's safe to say that this is a pivotal moment for TransLink's history. My job as CFO has been to make sure this organization is ready financially, no matter what the outcome of the vote. We are exceedingly careful with the funds entrusted to us. The people of this region, including everyone in this room, fund our services through taxes and fares. We recognize this great responsibility. We must keep our financial house in order, minimize cost, and keep revenues up, all to ensure that we deliver the most effective and cost-efficient service possible. Now, let me tell you what we've achieved over the last few years, and in particularly in 2014. We ended 2014 in a strong financial position, putting more than $100 million of cost savings to the bottom line. The 2014 budget included over $64 million of cost efficiencies and revenue improvements, of which we exceeded it by over $5 million. We also achieved slightly over $38 million in one-time savings from contributions from developers and improved buying practices. Finding savings like this is an ongoing mission from TransLink. Since 2012, we've realized over $240 million in cost savings. And since 2010, we've kept our expenditures below the rate of inflation, with only 1.2% compounded annual growth. A key indicator of our overall financial health is what our credit rating agencies and investors say about us. Our strong financial management was recognized by investors and endorsed by both Moody's Investor Service and Dominion Bond Rating Services. Our AA credit rating was reaffirmed in 2014. With a credit rating this good, we were able to successfully raise $130 million in the bond market to finance capital projects in 2014. Investors, they can choose anywhere where they want to put their money. And I get to meet these investors. I have one-on-one meetings with each and every one of them. And what I hear almost all the time is that why can't we have a TransLink? We want one of those in our city. And they choose to invest in us because they know their dollars will be well managed. We are the only transportation agency in Canada to raise funds directly through the debt capital market. TransLink has raised over $1 billion since 2010. This money directly benefits the improvements for transportation in this region. Now, let me walk you through our 2014 report card. Operating revenue was $1.5 billion. Operating expenditures were $1.43 billion. And we've achieved a net surplus of $26.8 million. 234.6 million people rode our system in 2014, which is up after a dip in 2013. As the population grows, we expect to see the number to continue to increase in the coming years. We've been able to sustain a consistently high level at transit service, even with no new funding to pay for additional services over the last 5 years. We make the most of the dollars entrusted to us by reallocating bus service. In 2014, 52,000 transit service hours were shifted from areas of low productivity to those with higher demand to offer more services to more customers. 390,000 service hours have been reallocated since 2010. Transit revenues are strong and cover 53.4% of the transit service operating costs. This is among the best in recovery rates in North America. Over the entire transit system, we delivered 6.26 million service hours. Our customer satisfaction rating held steady at 7.6. We also saw a drop of over 3% in the overall service complaints. To put this in perspective, we only received 85.7 complaints per 1 million. That's 1 million boarded passengers. Even though that number continues to improve, we know we can do better. Now here's something that I'm personally very proud of. TransLink plays a leadership role in sustainability. This will be especially important with the increased demand on transit. We are always looking for measures to lessen our carbon footprint. This includes purchasing more fuel-efficient vehicles and implementing energy-efficient projects throughout our facilities. You may have seen the compressed natural gas or CNG buses as you walked into the Anvil Center. I think it was just around the corner. This is our most modern bus. These vehicles are quieter and they have lower fuel and operating costs. We currently have a total of 95 CNG buses in our fleet, and we plan to purchase another 170 over the next 4 years. Another initiative, an anti-idling program for buses. This has saved us 567,000 liters of fuel and the corresponding greenhouse gas emissions from burning fuel unnecessarily. This accounts for a savings of $750,000 last year alone. We also decreased energy consumption across all of our facilities by 2.3% compared to the prior year, a clear ongoing trend since 2011. In closing, our financial results put us in a good place, and we're ready to take on the challenges ahead. It is my commitment to ensure transit delivers on the expectations of the people who live in this region, our customers, and our investors. I know our interim CEO, has some thoughts of where the future will take us from here. But as it stands, TransLink is in a strong financial position. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to someone you might have seen commute if you travel in and out of our Vancouver region. She interacts with the public every day in her job as one of the 3,500 operators who drive every day at Coast Mountain Bus Company. Please join me in welcoming Desiree Gill. Desiree?
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning. Wow. My name is Desiree Gill, and as Kathy said, I've a transit operator working out of the Vancouver Transit Centre for Coast Mountain Bus Company for the past 6 years. The 29 bus routes that travel through the heart of the city have to be among some of the most challenging TransLink has, but I wouldn't have it any other way. While many of my colleagues have moved on to other depots, I chose to stay in Vancouver, partly because I was born and raised there, and partly because my office has ever-changing and the best views Vancouver has to offer. There's no better way to start the day than seeing the ocean and the city skyline while driving over the Granville Street Bridge or the Burrard Street Bridge and watching the sun come up. Like any job, it has its challenges and it has its rewards. Trying to navigate a city constantly under construction with pedestrians and skateboarders, cyclists, other peoples and cars, and everyday distractions is no easy trick. But we have some of the best operators in the world to do the job safely and to do the job right. There are highs and lows, but I'm happy to say the high side is still winning. One day a passenger may yell at you for being late, and the next day you may hear from a passenger that stood at that bus stop waiting specifically for you to thank you for getting her son home after a skateboarding accident the day before. TransLink also offers many wide-ranging opportunities to affect change within the company. I have watched as my union and employer have worked together on common goals, like changing legislation to better protect our operators. I'm also fortunate enough to follow in the legacy of Anna Dean, one of the first female operators hired in 1975. She opened the door, so to speak, and now I have the privilege of working with a great group of women at VTC, and we are making a difference in the community we work in. So far, we've held food bank drives, clothing drives for a women's shelter and a safe house, fundraising drive for one of our own members who lost his home 2 days after Christmas. Thankfully, he and his family got out safely. But the best part about my job is that I get to work in a transit system that's always growing and always changing. I was 13 when the sea bus came into play, and I can tell you every kid thought it was the coolest thing to take a boat across the ocean. Right here in the city, it was amazing. We did it all the time. And it got even better in 1986 when the SkyTrain came in with Expo, and then I was here again to watch the Canada Line come in with the 2010 Winter Olympics. With the ever-increasing population, I know we'll see even more changes, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you. And now, if you would please turn your attention to the following video and get a glimpse of the system that runs day in and day out that I work within. Thank you.
Transit carries 500,000 people a day.
Our job is to transport people from point A to point B in a safe and effective manner.
We not only look after the West Coast Express, SkyTrain, bus service, cycling and pedestrian facilities, we also have 5 major bridges that fit into the major road network that produces an integrated functional system.
Station, I then take the West Coast Express all the way to Waterfront, and from Waterfront I connect onto the Canada Line all the way to YVR Station, and I get off literally steps away from my desk.
So it's a combination of biking, taking SkyTrain, a rapid transit bus, and then biking again on the other end.
We do complementary planning, so think about how you can access everything within walking distance. So you can shop, you can live, you can work, you can play, all in proximity to each other. We think about the decisions that we make today of where things will develop, how we'll grow as a community.
My job is to ensure the public receives excellent information every day of the year. Twitter started out as a bit of an experiment, and now we've got 63,000 followers and climbing, and more than 100 tweets a day.
We do good planning now so that we can have a good community and quality of life for the future.
I love my job because I love the people I get to see every day, my regulars who rely on me to get to work or to school.
My job is important because there's a lot of people who rely on our buses to get them to work.
We're here to make sure that our service is going to be out there for our customers.
I've been with transit for 31 years.
I've been a captain now 11 years.
I have been serving SkyTrain for 17 glorious years.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to introduce our interim CEO, Doug Allen, and then we'll move to the Q&A right after. Doug?
Colleen, thanks very much. Desiree, thanks very much to you. Good morning, everybody. Nice to have you here. I would also like to thank all of our employees who shared their stories today. They're quite moving, to say the least. And the video we just watched. It gives a small glimpse into our large and very complex organization. It also shows us the incredible passion that our people have for their work and for making this region a better place to live. For that, I am grateful because, like many of you, I'm a transit customer and one of the 235 million people we moved in 2014. As some of you know, I regularly take the number 84 bus, and I like it. I also take the Millennium Line. So I'm not surprised by the safe, reliable service and how great the system is. Like many of you, I've come to expect it. My focus at TransLink has been on the key elements of safety and security, updating SkyTrain given the age of the system, growing transit ridership, improving the customer experience, and being more efficient. One of the things that surprised me when I came to TransLink about 5 months ago is how well it ranks to other agencies around the world. Not only is SkyTrain the most cost-effective light rail system in North America, but we've got a service area that is 3 times the size of Toronto. I know that's hard for some of you to believe. Our bus system has the lowest operating cost per mile compared to the world's biggest bus companies, including those in Barcelona, Montreal, Sydney, and New York. We've got the lowest carbon emissions per vehicle mile compared to 15 of the world's biggest bus companies. Our operating cost recovery at 53% is almost twice that of most major US transit agencies. And the Imperial College London's International Bus Benchmarking Group says our bus company is an excellent financial performer compared to international peers. I know we can do even better, and we have the right people to do it. I've been really impressed by the passion, dedication, and expertise of the men and women who choose TransLink as their employer. I think you got a sense of that this morning. I thank our 6,700 employees for their hard work and dedication to driving performance at TransLink. Now today we are here to talk about the past year and take a look at what lies ahead. Today, as we continue to roll out Compass Card across the system, our customers are starting to pay for transit online, using their mobile phones to put stored value on their Compass Cards. By the end of August, this August, at least 230,000 customers will be using Compass. I'll just say that again. By the end of August, at least 230,000 customers will be using Compass. Today, SkyTrain zips up and down the track using a technology called CellTrack, a leading example of Canadian technology that was at the forefront of automated transit systems when it was introduced nearly 30 years ago. Launched in 1986, SkyTrain is one of the oldest and one of the longest fully automated, driverless rapid transit systems in the world. With the completion of the Evergreen extension, SkyTrain will become one of the longest rapid transit systems around the globe. As much as we are moving ahead with new technology and new projects, such as improvements to our aging SkyTrain stations along the Expo line, we are also making the most of our existing assets. For example, we're extending the life of 114 SkyTrain cars that have been in service since 1986. With some help from the Federal Gas Tax Fund, we are upgrading these cars, which will extend each vehicle's lifespan by 15 years to a total of 40 years in operation. All of the vehicles will be fully revamped in 2016. New SkyTrain vehicles of the same capacity would have cost an estimated $262 million. The cost to TransLink to refurbish the existing cars is a fraction of the cost at $38 million. As Matt pointed out earlier, sections of rail are also being replaced along the 30-year-old Expo line and the aging stations. And the aging stations are being modernized to improve safety, security, accessibility, and capacity. Our customers can look forward to more space on the platforms and a doubling of capacity of the Expo line. The improvements will also provide better integration with the surrounding communities and bus exchanges for easier connections to and from SkyTrain. As Barry mentioned, we are also continuing to boost the resilience of SkyTrain and improve the system overall, following the 20 recommendations of Gary McNeil. That work is well underway, and we will take a number of years to complete. In 2014, we also made major strides in providing better service to our customers who need help getting around. Expanding the use of taxis to get more people with mobility challenges where they need to go resulted in a 60% reduction in trip denials for HandyDART service. We delivered more than 1 million trips on HandyDART vehicles and 74,361 trips by taxi. The system continues to be safe, reliable, and high quality, and that's going to be even more important as we all get older and need a little more help taking transit. I know the last few months have not been easy. In all the debate and discussion around the plebiscite, and in general when it comes to TransLink, what sometimes gets lost is that we have an incredible team of people who are truly committed to first-rate customer service and to running a safe and reliable transit system. I've only been here a few months, but if there's anything I've learned, it's that we're up to the challenge, no matter what the future brings. Thanks everybody again for joining us today. And as Barry said earlier, Metro transit system belongs to you, and you keep us moving. Thank you very much. Colleen?
Thank you, Doug. Thanks, everyone. And now we're going to move to the Q&A portion of our AGM, and we really encourage you to ask your questions. We've got 2 roving mics in the audience, so we've got Jennifer Moreland right here, and Elizabeth Saul, who's right there, walking around the back. Yep, thank you, Elizabeth. And so if you have a question, I ask you to raise your hand, and we'll bring the mic to you, and then we'll direct the question to the appropriate person. Jane Dyson has a question. Jennifer, could you bring her the mic? Thank you.
So first off, I just want to thank you very much for your acknowledging my award. I was really surprised by that, so thank you. And I did want to acknowledge the work of TransLink staff and the Disability Access Transit Disability Users Advisory Committee, because they do really important work making sure that the disability community's voice is heard by TransLink, and to ensure that everybody is working together on this very important field. I just wonder, this is probably pretty a broad question, but I wonder what the what TransLink's goals are for the next 2 or 3 years with respect to ensuring that our system continues to be as accessible as it is, and hopefully better, particularly with our aging population, which, as has been mentioned, will require even more accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And I know we do have Marilee here as well, who's our real resident expert on access transit issues. And I see Martin Lay here as well. I don't know if you folks want to step in, if Doug or Kathy or Barry might want to preface any remarks with that. Okay, Doug.
Thanks very much. I'll be happy to turn it over to my 2 colleagues, but I'll just make a couple of general statements. One is we think the system's running much better, and we thank you for your comments. We obviously want to see service grow. The needs are growing. people like me are aging. It's a very important part of our system. And we also want to do it wisely, smartly, efficiently. And as you know, the taxi component of this has been quite successful. We're just very pleased that we've been able to get trip denials down so substantially. They're down 60%, as you know. I think we simply have to keep at it. We've also done, I think, a better job of communicating with customers as to what's available when, and we're going to keep at that. Marilee is quite a bit wiser than I am on this issue, but I would be happy to turn it to her. Marilee, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. You on? Thanks, Doug. And Jane, thanks for the question. Definitely a priority for us. I think Doug has answered a lot of the topics and the areas of priority there. But I can say one thing, we work very closely. We do have an aging population, and the most significant disability, particularly for seniors, is mobility-related disabilities. And so we do have to have that at the forefront of all of our decisions. And we do work very closely with our planning and our infrastructure team. I can say that we place an accessibility lens on almost every decision we make, whether it's fleet-related or whether it's network transit planning related. Handy Dart has been a real focus of ours, and I have to thank a lot of the folks in this room from the disability community, because it is thanks to you that helped establish our strategies and recommendations to the great success that we've had over the past year and a half in getting more people to where they need to go, more people with disabilities, and more seniors to where they need to go in the region, and not leaving anybody behind. So that's our goal that we're going to stay focused on for the next year and two. And I know, Jane, to your point, the next 5 years and 10 years is going to be particularly critical, which is why the plebiscite was such an important aspect of that as well, regarding additional Handy Dart service in the region. But we're going to keep going on the path forward, and stakeholder consultation with you folks is, there is no finish line. We need to make sure we get it right. So thank you.
Thanks, Marilee. Thank you. Any other questions? We have a question from this gentleman here. Elizabeth, could you bring in the mic? Thank you.
What elements of the 10-year program will proceed, and to what timetable if the plebiscite is voted down?
Doug, would you like to come and address that? So the question is with respect to if there's a no vote in the plebiscite.
Thanks very much. Maybe I could address both a yes and a no. So obviously, if they're a yes, there are many people in this room, including all of us, that would be very pleased with that outcome. If there's a yes vote, there are a number of things that have to happen in terms of getting ready to implement the investment plan, not the least of which, of course, is the revenue measure, the tax measure that the province would have to undertake and presumably pass as quickly as they can. From our perspective, if it's a yes vote, we will move on a number of things almost immediately in terms of improving bus service. We're going to be focused on providing more, and we're going to focus specifically on night bus service in the coming months. Some of you don't know, we've got 12 routes downtown that constitute our night service. It's very important for a lot of people that are downtown late, but particularly those that are working in the community. And we're going to enhance that. And then we'll get on to the full program in 2016. And that will not only be service enhancements on a number of fronts, but we'll quickly begin with procurement, whether that be new buses or cars. And then, of course, we've got major projects that will follow shortly thereafter. So that's the yes side. It's very much upbeat. On the no side, if that were to happen, then obviously we have a different scenario. Let me just start, however, by saying the debate we've had across the region has been a very good debate. It's been very good for us. I think it's been very good for our customers. I think it's been very good for the general public. And I'm quite confident that the parties involved, TransLink, the mayors, the province, and others, will work hard to look forward as to how to address the situation. From our perspective, Our job will be to deliver high-quality service day in, day out. And we'll be restrained because our revenues will be restrained, to say the least. Our cost pressures will be fairly evident. But we will show up day in, day out to try and do everything we can to provide very high-quality service. And we're going to have to be very efficient and smart while we do it.
Thank you, Doug. Hope that answered your question, sir. We have a question right here. Elizabeth, could you bring the mic?
Ampasadani, father of Sablefish, father of all women, Raven Tribe, Ganhada, expressing appreciation for the privilege of gathering in these ancestral lands. City of New Westminster has been here for 1.x centuries. Congratulations on that. Aboriginal people have been here for since time immemorial, for many millennia, and deserve to be acknowledged consistently, and commend Mayor Gregor and his council for the courage and wisdom of the City of Vancouver to do that, and hope that others may shape up in that area. With regard to a particular segment, and I will also say I have involvement with the Transit Working Group, Metro Vancouver Alliance, and we cherish the involvement of the wonderful young woman from the University of British Columbia. The $7.7 billion 10-year budget, one particular segment, with regard to Handy-Dart, the claim is that over that decade there would be a 30% improvement, which of course equates to 3% per annum with a growing and aging population. 30% better than what? The way it used to be before it got so bad, or a 30% improvement in terms of the service, which degraded rather dramatically when there was a private contractor. And so that's one question, and the second one is, what about the Tri-City sinkholes?
Thank you for your question, sir. Doug, you're getting a lot of exercise here. I guess the Tri-City sinkholes, you want to start with that?
I'll start with question 2, if that's all right. With respect to Evergreen, Evergreen's a very important extension, but I think, as you know, it is a provincial project. They, in fact, are in charge of the construction of Evergreen. We're in charge of the integration, and it'll be built into our system. I think in terms of where the province is with respect to the tunneling, you have to address that question specifically to them. All I know is that we're doing our best from the TransLink side to make sure that integration happens as it should, and that customers will find this to be seamless when we get to commissioning many months out. So that's the second question, or a response to the second question. On the first question, it's really 30% from where we are currently, and that's a big lift from where we are currently. A number of the details that have to come out on exactly when we're going to do that through the 10-year plan, we will be disclosing those, of course, if we get a yes fairly soon. But, you know, contrary to maybe your comments, we think the system is pretty good, and we think we have others that support us on that. Can we get better? Of course, and that's what we will attempt to do.
Thank you, and you're right. There was an oversight with respect to the ancestral lands that we stand on. So thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate that. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I see somebody has a question here. Right here, sir? Yeah. Someone will bring a mic to you if you just want to wait a second. Thank you.
On page 43 of the statutory annual report, which was released on June 15th, you claim TransLink responds to complaints via Facebook. But on June 12th, the TransLink rep responding to Facebook complaints said, unfortunately, we are unable to file feedback complaint forms on behalf of customers. So my question is, how do you receive, track, respond, diagnose, rectify, and report on complaints as required by Order 0802 of the TransLink Commissioner via Facebook?
So, sorry, I missed the question. How do we track our complaints? Was that the question?
How do you receive, track, respond, diagnose, and rectify, and report on complaints via Facebook when your TransLink rep says they cannot file complaints on behalf of customers?
Right. Okay. Is there anybody here who can speak to that? Anybody here from Coast Mountain Bus Company? Julie Bailey? Adrian, do you have a comment? Could somebody bring you the mic and I can add to it?
Hi there. So considering that our complaints come through our customer relations department, anything on Facebook, which I respond to, and so does our team, we direct any customer complaints to customer relations. We provide the phone number as well as the email where you can email and file a complaint form, which is online. You can ask to get a response from that as well, and it's up to 15 days based on volume that you'll get a response. We don't have something right through Facebook because the volume, we send them to customer relations, so all of our complaints are in the same department.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you very much. And we take all of our complaints very seriously, and we do track them and we do respond to them. So I'm going to move to another question. I saw a hand over here, sir. This young gentleman right here has a question.
Okay, so the question I have is I don't understand, like this part where sometimes I notice like I get really hot on the SkyTrain or in the bus and when they open the window and I would get a customer say, oh, I don't want the window open, or I'll open it and I'll close it right away, or sometimes it goes the other way around, like I want one closed. Like especially on the SkyTrain sometimes, like it's so noisy, I can't hear the train announcements of the next station, so I go in and close the window, and then I have people coming at me, they're like, oh, no, it's too hot to close the window, so why can't we just make it standardized as the window should only be controlled by the drivers and nobody else can touch it, or like maybe do it like all the new ones, so you can't even open the windows and air conditioning only.
Yes, yeah, good question. I felt that way sometimes myself on there. Is anybody here from operations that might want to? Doug Kelsey, do you have a comment on that? I know you've got some strong feelings about it. Doug, can somebody bring a mic to Doug? Doug? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. In terms of the SkyTrain fleet, firstly, let's start from the back end first. The Mark III vehicles that will be coming, they're all air conditioned to start with. The Mark II vehicles are all air conditioned, so I think the customer's referring to specifically to the Mark I vehicles. Both Mark I vehicles and Mark II vehicles both have the capability to have the upper windows open on a hinge basis. So, and another point, there are no drivers on the trains, as I think the customer referred to, so it's going to be pretty challenging under most circumstances that it's really self-managing. And part of this is how society comes together and from all different walks of life to use the system. So most people don't have a difficulty with the windows open on hot days on the Mark I's like we have today. In fact, we've asked our staff to make sure the windows in fact are open because it creates some circulation between stations. Of course, when the doors open, it re-acclimatizes and such. So if it is an inconvenience for the customer, I would just ask them, they may want to consider moving to another part of the train where sometimes some windows are in fact closed. So it's trying to make sure it's comfortable for almost all our customers.
Also, like on the buses, that should they only be controlled by the driver's side? Like there's times when I try to open the window on a bus, and then the driver, and then I have a patch like, oh no, I don't want it, I don't want to open it. I don't like it. So can they certainly change that the windows on the buses are only being controlled by the driver?
Sure. Yeah. No. We actually, Doug Allen can answer your question about the buses. So thank you for that. Okay.
I'm trying to answer this as a bus rider, if I may. Because I understand the nature of your concern, I think. So when you're riding on the bus, particularly on the back of the bus, and there's a debate whether the window should be open or not, there's some form of negotiation that takes place among riders. Essentially, that's what transpires. And usually, common sense prevails. But your suggestion with respect to the operator basically arbitrating this, the only thing I would say is that I am very impressed these days with what operators do, and I really don't think we can add this to their role. They are managing an awful lot at the front end of the bus. But in terms of how we deal with windows, I think we're left to trying to figure out with our fellow citizens what makes sense. There is our president of the bus company here, Hayden Atchison, and if he's got a better idea than I have, he will give it to you privately. But I think it's a negotiation.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Doug. George Heyman, Mr. Heyman, do you have a question? Yes, someone will bring you a mic if you don't mind, then everyone can hear your question. There you go.
Thank you. First of all, I assume everyone in this room was an active supporter of yes vote in the plebiscite. I've met and worked and campaigned with a number of people in the room on that issue, despite the fact that most of us believed that a plebiscite was a very bad way to make a major capital expenditure decision. We're waiting for the result of the vote, and I want to go back to Mr. Allen's comment on the implications of a yes or a no vote. I note in the annual report there's 390,000 service hours reallocated. A couple of years ago, TransLink had a plan to add 306,000 bus service hours. Presumably the reallocation is in part an attempt to meet the needs that weren't met when those hours had to be shelved for lack of funding, but it is a bit of a zero-sum game. It is not a mistake to optimize service, but everybody has a different view of what appropriate frequency or route dispersal is, and there's a limit to what can be done by moving routes around. I think TransLink's own reports a couple of years ago said that without additional funding, we would be heading back to 2004 per capita service levels by 2020. There's no reason to believe we're not still on that track. So I'd like to invite Mr. Allen to be a bit more explicit, because I think users of the system and residents of Metro Vancouver deserve to know and have a clearer picture of what it means to have a no vote and what it will mean for services, not service optimization, but actual service reduction. And the reason this is important is if there is a no vote, the people of Metro Vancouver need to make it very clear to the provincial government that they need to go back to the plan they actually signed in a memorandum with the mayors in 2010 to work on a funding formula, because we can't just sit around and wait for another plebiscite. So I'd invite Mr. Allen to be a bit more direct.
George, thanks very much. Nice to have you here. On the service level question, there's no doubt that we have faced challenges in delivering service levels per person at a level we want to be at. That goes without saying. So if you're going back to the no scenario, then in fact you have our revenues constrained. Our revenues are essentially the big one, the fare box. This, to me, wouldn't seem like a good time to be increasing fares for a whole bunch of reasons, because we're trying to drive up ridership. So that's the first part. The second part is motor fuel tax is somewhat unpredictable and not overly positive these days. Property tax has a ceiling on it, and then there are a series of ancillary revenues, including parking, that have us, as I mentioned earlier, constrained. So on the revenue side, this is again under a no scenario, we don't have much scope for growth. In fact, we have none. On the cost side, we still have a number of cost pressures that we're going to be facing. So we're going to have to be much smarter in what we deliver. But if anybody thinks in a no scenario that we can simply move on and continue to either deliver the status quo or even more, we can't. In terms of the specifics as to what we do on individual routes, or what we're going to do on the C-Bus, or what it means for SkyTrain, I'm not going to go down that path until we actually know what the outcome is fairly soon. But we're going to have to look at all of those, George, in terms of which routes make sense in terms of current levels, or what adjustments need to be made, what we're going to do with headways with respect to SkyTrain, and how those might be adjusted. At this stage, that's merely speculation, and I'd prefer to get into the hard reality only if, in fact, we know what the outcome is, and if it's a no, we'll address it. I can say this, that we will, in fact, do our utmost under any set of circumstances to try and ensure that service levels are the best we can offer. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Doug. I believe we have a question here from this lady. Could somebody bring her the mic, Elizabeth? Oh, yes, and we'll get to you right after, sir. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I like to talk about fixed bus stop, okay? You used bus stop maybe 10 years ago. All the houses, apartments come too close, and you have to fix bus stops. On 63rd and 9th Street, go to the bridge. On 63rd and 9th Bridge, you can't pass the street pedestrian. You don't have stop. Passengers can't cross the street. Traffic too heavy, and they can't stop. Then you have to put light there. Then Elliott and Marine Drive, the people, how they cut the bus from Marine Drive to the Elliott, they have walked to the bus stop. So many places. I like to go with somebody who fixes the bus stop and transfer bus to bus and sky to sky, because it's terrible connection. Then you have to find out to make side street buses. People live from the Kingsway to down to the Endmo Street, where they have walked to bus stop to the Kingsway to cut buses 106 or 129, and which bus is that? That means the people can carry grocery too far from there. You don't have any side street. I was to live on 45th and 41st. You know how long it takes me from my street, my home, to come to get the bus 41? And especially when I carry grocery, that's terrible, you know. That means you have to put side street buses to connection for main bus where they go.
Thank you very much for your comment. Did you have a specific question that we could answer for you?
Well, that's all what I ask you, to make a bus a sidewalk that people can cross the street. If you see, I am here, and I have go down and cross the street. I have to go on the street stop, red light, and I have 2-3 blocks to go there, because it is not a sidewalk here. Nobody won't stop, okay? You understand what I say?
Yes, I do. And actually, you know, we have some people here from our planning group, unless anybody here has a specific answer to that. But I can, would you mind if we ask somebody from planning to follow up with you? We're going to wrap up here in about 5 minutes. So if that would be okay with you, because it sounds like you have a very specific question. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll do that, and we'll connect with you right after the meeting in about 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, I noticed there's quite a few hands going around. I did promise this gentleman, though, so I'm going to come right back to you. And then this gentleman has been patiently waiting. Thank you.
Can I hold it? Hi, I'm Roderick Lewis. I'm someone who lives in White Rock. I've been a regular bus user, transit user for over 40 years. I want to first say thanks to TransLink and the board members that are here for putting this event on. And also, before I may pose 3 questions, I'd like to just say that what I perceive is that TransLink is making an effort, and you should be commended, for attempting to build public confidence and a buy-in into future decision-making. And I particularly commend TransLink for earlier today saying that there's going to be 4 open public board meetings. This should be a positive step, but I hope that based on past witnessing of the fiascos at the previous TransLink board, before the composition of the board was changed, those were quite hairy events. Some of the public became quite abusive, so I wish you luck in your future board meetings. In the objective of developing a public buy-in and public confidence in TransLink's decisions, what I believe is needed more is to ensure that there are venues and avenues for both public input, direct input, as well as participation in the actual decision-making, particularly around major projects, such as the proposed rail transit lines in Surrey. I fear that we're going to end up with what could be termed a visionless, quite unambitious, needlessly unambitious rail system in Surrey. And what should be being done is TransLink should be going big and attempting to make a Rembrandt of rapid transit in Surrey, raised elevated rapid transit similar to the SkyTrain throughout the city, not just a child's paint-by-number rapid transit system. So towards that end, and perhaps my view wouldn't be shared by the majority of people who use the system in the future, TransLink should be establishing a working group at which the public will be invited to make their views known as to what form and what scope the rapid transit lines that are proposed for Surrey should be. Currently, the proposal is to have new rail lines at grade through a very small proportion of Surrey, as opposed to above ground, raised like the Canada Line and the Expo and Millennium Line out of traffic. And what is going to happen is we're going to end up with Surrey again looking like it's the dump of the region, despite it being the fastest growing and the most potentially growable in terms of investment and housing. It's the only major city in the region that has room to grow, and yet there's no plans to make the rapid transit system one that will be a world beater and that will impress people. So point one, please consider developing a working group at which the public can make their views known as to what type of rapid transit should be being put into Surrey. Should it be an at-grade 19th century system, or should it be above ground, and should it be throughout the region? Second point I would like to raise a question on. This is the 125th anniversary of TransLink. 130 years ago, John Kemp Starley invented the safety bicycle, the precursor of the bike that we all ride today, with two wheels, the same size and a chain-driven system, as opposed to the penny farthings, which were the big wheel at the front, small at the back. Throughout the transit region, bicycle lanes vary in width dramatically. Some are extremely narrow, very, very dangerous to ride on. And I understand from Bob Patton, one of the senior executives with TransLink, that as far as he knows and as far as I know, there are no standards in legislation that require that bicycle lanes must be a particular width. So could TransLink, working with the provincial government and the cities, put together a working group at which the members of the public or representatives of groups such as Hub could participate? And the purpose mainly would be to develop a specific set of guidelines for how wide bicycle lanes should be, how they should be marked, and following that, could TransLink take it upon themselves sooner rather than later to rectify the dangerousness of the extremely narrow bicycle lanes throughout the region? And last point, which again relates to public buy-in and public confidence to TransLink's very important work, as most of us in this room probably are well aware, low-paid jobs, minimum wage jobs, and MOOC jobs are becoming more and more common throughout the region. And at the same time, there are pressures upon dual and triple income families to be able to afford just basic transit passes. So could TransLink develop a transit pass that would be one in which minimum wage earners would be given either a substantially subsidized pass or a free pass, perhaps through their employer, but as far as the actual funding mechanism for paying for the pass, this would be at least a step in the direction of raising minimum wage, albeit indirectly. So a working group to obtain public input to the rapid transit lines in Surrey, a working group to develop standards for widths for bicycle lanes throughout the region, and as well to fix the dangerously narrow ones, which are predominant. And thirdly, a working group perhaps to ask the public and business owners how they would propose to create a subsidized bus pass, monthly bus pass, 1, 2, or 3, preferably 3 zones if possible, for people who are earning minimum wage or generally in that neighborhood of monthly pay.
Thank you very much. The very well thought out presentation and questions, and we will actually take all of these back, and actually we'll follow up with you right after the meeting if you don't mind. We do really like to involve the public in our decision making, and your ideas are really, really important to us. So Sure, yeah. I'm sure that Doug would be happy to make a comment, or Kathy. Sure, absolutely. Yep. Doug?
Thanks very much. I think one thing we know at TransLink is that we have to have more engagement with riders and with the public generally. So I take your general tenet around the three areas. The first thing I would say with respect to rapid transit in Surrey, and there's no larger advocate than the Mayor of Surrey who is with us, that this was in the Mayor's vision. There was a lot of work done in advance with respect to what that component of the Mayor's vision would look like. There's a lot of work that has been ongoing for some time. This is not a casual proposal that's in the investment plan of the Mayor's. It's a very significant proposal. I don't know all of the consultation that's taken place over the last several years, but there is extensive consultation that's taken place across the region and particularly in Surrey. And in fact, I'm sure the Mayor can speak to that more specifically. On the second question of bike lanes, again, we have a Mayor in the audience where bike lane expansion has been very significant. And I take the point that we can play a role with municipalities and the province. You're talking about one sort of standard. There may be other standards that need to be in place. As you know, it's part of our capital program. I think of the 47 million that we in fact are providing this year to municipalities, part of the 6 million is dedicated specifically to bike lanes. But I take the point on standards that we could do more, and we could do more in getting input from all kinds of people on what that should look like. On the third issue, with respect to passes, there are in place now a number of programs. You're talking about a specific one that's means tested. All I can say is this, that we have to do a lot more to in fact have a fare structure that encourages ridership. That's the main goal. We want more riders. So if in fact we have to redesign our entire fare structure to meet that end, we will work towards that objective. On your specific suggestion, we'll be quite happy to talk to you about what you think might work. But we obviously over time have to find incentives for people to ride the system, and there are different people that need different incentives. That's all I have to say on that, Colleen. I think we should have a couple of people talk to the gentleman just to see how we can engage after this. Thanks.
Okay, we have time for one more question. I know this lady has been really waiting quite a long time, so my apologies for keeping you waiting. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, oh, okay. My name is Jill Weiss, and I'm the co-chair of the City of Vancouver Persons with Disabilities Advisory Committee Transportation Subcommittee. I have two questions, but first I'd like to start with a compliment. There has been a consultation process going on for the last several years with TransLink and the disability community, and it's been coordinated by Marilee Ashworth, and it's really been very, very, very excellent. And a lot of the improvements that we've seen in accessible transit have come out of that consultation and the real openness of TransLink staff to listen and to carefully examine the suggestions. They're not being just automatically used, but they're being examined in a really rational way and then tried out. And the increase in taxis is a good example. So I have two questions, and the first one is about taxis, and it starts with a compliment as well. I don't have the words to say what a difference it has made for TransLink to have increased taxi use within Handy Dart. You allocated an additional $1 million last year just for taxi use, and for those of you that don't know, the reason that taxi use increases the rides in Handy Dart is because you get twice as many rides for the same amount of money. Montreal, for example, uses almost about 87% taxis, and they provide twice as many Handy Dart rides as we do for the same amount of money. Handy Dart is an expensive system. We have to use the funds efficiently to get more rides for people so that people with disabilities and seniors can move around the city like anyone else. So thank you very much. And my first question is, will you be continuing that increase in taxis so we can get to the kind of level that Montreal is at or San Francisco? So will you be continuing that $1 million this year and then increasing that amount so we get to the point where there really is no turndown rate in Handy Dart? That's my first question. And my second question is sort of similar. As some of you know, taxi savers are actually the very most cost-effective way to transport seniors and people with disabilities. And so my question is, will TransLink be looking at doubling, at least doubling, maybe tripling the amount of taxi savers that people can buy, and reducing the user payment? Currently, users in our system pay 50% of the cost of taxi savers, whereas in San Francisco, for example, it's 20%. And even if you reduced it in half to 25%, TransLink would still be getting those rides at less cost than any other option, than taxis even within Handy Dart. So my second question is, will you look at, seriously, increasing the amount of taxi savers that people can buy and reducing the user payment? And I should add that in addition to saving TransLink money, that gives people freedom, because you can just go wherever you want, whenever you want, without having to book your ride in advance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Would any of our speakers panel like to answer that question? So the first question is, there was $1 million allocated for the taxi saver, for the taxi program last year, correct me if I'm wrong, and that's, you'd like to know if that will continue, and the taxi savers, will we double it and reduce the user payment on that program?
I think in your two-part question, it depends on the world we're entering once we have an understanding of this plebiscite. So if, in fact, there is a yes vote, we will take both of your suggestions under serious consideration. If, in fact, there's a no vote, we're not going to have the funds in the short term to be expanding many programs. As good as this one is, and I take your comments very directly, there are a number of things that we are not going to be able to do in a no scenario until long-term funding is sorted out. But I thank you for both comments, and I would be happy to chat personally with you on how we might address this, particularly under a yes scenario.
Thank you, Doug. It is 11:30. We did have some questions come through on social media that I'm actually not going to get to, but I am going to ask that we will be following up with those individuals. There's somebody with respect to the Burke Mountain area in Coquitlam, routes with low ridership. We had a question from Harrison with respect to considering modifying the seating format on SkyTrain to create more room on the trains. Questions about customer feedback and how that is used, and overcrowding and pass-ups, and how do we fix that. So those are specific questions we got through social media. We will follow up with those individuals personally, and I'd like to bring the meeting to a close now and thank everybody for your time today and participating in our annual general meeting. Appreciate you coming out, and I hope we got to all of your questions, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.